Welcome to the wonderful world of Ovations. I'm your host, Scotty D. Thank you for joining me. Ovation, the salad bowl of the guitar world. This Ovation bridge was barely held on. As you'd see it, under this thick poly finish, they only scratched off a small rectangular spot for some epoxy and held it down with 2 machine screws. I stuck a light inside the bowl so you could see how open this crack is. You can see right through that big crack. All the other cracks are pretty much just cosmetic. So this one came in and it had a broken tuner or tuning machine. So what I'm going to do is I couldn't believe how very lightweight this bridge is. It's made out of like Luan mahogany, Philippine, the lightest, least dense piece of hardwood I've ever come across. Okay, 0.422 OZT. I don't know what that measurement is. Let me switch it to grams. 13 grams. It's pretty wimpy. These are the fasteners and the abalone dots that were over the fasteners on that bridge. And here's the broken tuner. Now I'm going to order a brand new set of Ovation tuners for my friend Dusty up in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. If you've never heard of My Dusty Guitar, check it out. He's got all the Ovation hardware, electronics, everything you'll need to restore your Ovation to its former glory. Now I'm preparing this sponge. We're going to hydrate the guitar for a full week. I'll bag it up in a good old 13-gallon kitchen bag, and I'll go ahead and throw this old spongy thing on here too. Kind of close off the sound hole. Stick it on the wall and bag her up. That'll keep all the moisture in. Maybe that crack will close up an eyelash. Maybe not. But either way, we'll say we gave it a try. Because she told me there's no rush, and I figured, well then, let's just spend a whole week seeing what this crack does. I've heard of people taking months with cracks like that. But like I said, 1 week later, the magic of YouTube, a week gone by in just a second. And you'll see a whole new row of guitars on my waiting room wall. Okay, I'm going to be able to get one cleat in here on the inside, and because the braces run diagonal like this, I'm only going to be able to get kind of a short one there, but this is where it's going to end up. I've got the magnet on the inside right now, and this is the best place I think for the cleat to go. So I'll tape this one down. That way when I reach in with the cleat, it snaps right in place. We'll prepare the magnet strip with a little bit of putty. That way the cleat can stick to the magnet. Now that we've cleaned and sanded and cleaned the cleat, which is a crossed grain hard maple, we can apply the glue. But first, I'll warm up the area. And we're not using just room temperature tight bond yellow wood glue that you can buy at the hardware store. We're using rock hard liquid hot hide glue. Let me rephrase that. It's hot hide glue in its liquid form when it's hot, and then when it cools down, it's rock hard. That yellow wood glue that they sell at the hardware store stays rubbery. I mean, it's good for some stuff, but maybe we don't want a guitar that sounds like rubber. I'm trying to improve the sound of it with re-gluing the bridge and all that. Fixing it up nice. Adding some value, if that is such a thing. All right, so the hot glue goes on. I flip the magnet over, and the cleat knows exactly where to go. Now I'll push down right on the center of that magnet. And I'll do that by putting two very long bar clamps down around the workstation, which has a flat bottom. You couldn't just use clamps on an Ovation bowl because it's round. Got to come up with innovative ways to work on an Ovation guitar. One of my colleagues used a toilet seat. No shit. All right, we'll leave that overnight. Not too bad. See if I can get this puppy out of here. See, it's stuck. Looks like some of the putty is left in there, but it feels really good. Let's see what it looks like on the inside. Looks horrible. I'll have to get that. I'll go in there with a razor blade and scrape that right off of there. Holy cow. Alright, all cleaned up. Not the most beautiful cleat in the world, but, you know, it's doing its job. Now, we'll get to work on these cracks. Gotta scrape them down and fill them in. Once the fill and finish has cured, I can use a razor blade to scrape and then sandpapers and sanding blocks to level the repairs. What I like to do is scrape it till it's about almost there, and then I'll start sanding. My original intention was to take it down and power sand it with my dual action sander, which is a pneumatic. You have to, I have like a 1000 grit disc on it. Here it is. So you have to use, you have to wet sand with it. And it was kind of making a big mess. I think this should be reserved for electric guitar body refinishes. Get off the orange peel. It wasn't very effective getting level sanding the glue boost crack repair, but I thought I'd show it to you anyways. I gave it a try. You never know till you try it. We'll go back to level sanding it the old-fashioned way, which takes a lot of elbow grease. I'm going to use 120 and 220 grit. Then a little bit of 320 and 400. I'll clean it up, and then I'll wipe on some ultra thin fill and finish that's been thinned out even more with 2 chemicals. Well, before we do that, there was a couple low spots, so I filled those in and went back to level sanding. It's a lot of work. It wouldn't be so hard if the fill and finish wasn't so hard. It's not quite rock hard, but it's harder than lacquer or shellac. I'll tell you that much. So for wiping on this ultra thin that I'm gonna whip up, I like to take paper towels. One of them's gonna be my accelerator towel, and the other stack is gonna be for wiping. Wiping on the new finish, that is. I'll cut these into smaller rectangles with scissors. And the 2 chemicals that I'll be using to thin out the ultra thin even thinner than it already is N-butyl acetate. You can get that on Amazon. It's almost like a retarder for super glue, so it doesn't kick off so fast. You don't want it to polymerize before it has a chance to level itself. And then acetone is the other one. So the little piece of cardboard that I cut out is going to be covered with this paper towel that's saturated with finishing wax. And then I'll take my 3 items to make up a finish. I've got the Glue Boost Ultra Thin, Fill and Finish, Acetone, and N-butyl acetate. Now I'll wrap a clean, dry paper towel over the waxed one, and I'll take this pipette and saturate the paper towel with my finish. I'll go over here and you see I've wiped it on over the cracks, but I didn't film it. But it was a quick little wipe, and then I give it a wipe with the accelerated paper towel. That'll get it curing. Then I can do like second and third wipes. Maybe I did 4 or 5. With a acceleration wipe in between each time. No big whoop-de-doo. Once this is fully cured, I'll go at it with 1500 grit, 2000, and 2500. Kaman Music, Korea. Kaman was the man behind the Ovation. It looks a little dull, but we'll get it to shine. We'll get it to shine tomorrow. Or we can do it today. If I accelerate further, once the acceleration has started with the glue dry aerosol, you can go ahead and use water and the StewMac accelerator on a paper towel to give it kind of an overnight hardness instantly. It's very reactive to water. So something happened. I buffed it out and it didn't look good. All my repairs had like little bubbles in them. It was really bad. I was very upset. And I didn't have a tantrum or anything, but I went back at it the next day and I scraped it all down again. But this is the kind of work that, you know, it just happens sometimes. I didn't clean out the channels very well before I started dousing it with the glue. So I had to dig it all out the next day. It was kind of rough on the hands, but I recovered. Hate to have to redo a finish repair, but we learn our lessons that way. Hopefully you guys will learn from my mistakes. But you know what? I sped things up the next day by using the StewMac guitar buffer. These are the Bufflex sandpapers. Super Bufflex. I do 1200, gray Scotch Brite, 1500, 2000, and 2500 grit. After a little bit of the Bufflex 1500, we're taking it down to the StewMac guitar buffing wheel. Let's wipe off that dust. Okay, that went well down there with the buffer. I used both wheels, and then I took my die grinder and I scuffed up this whole area underneath the bridge, because you know this is finish. It's not raw wood. And it's never gonna be raw wood. It's just too thick. And I scuffed it up with that 60 grit die grinder disc. And now I'm using this plastic polish just to see if it does anything. Really nothing. We'll see. Okay, so the only area I see left where there's a little bit of residual crack in the polyester is right there. Those big cracks are filled in nice, although they're a little discolored. And that darkening of the color there was where the poly was cracked for years and years, and oxidation and everything got into those cracks, and it just darkens the area. Well, we're just going to have to live with that, and I told her ahead of time. It's not going to look brand new or perfect. By golly, it's ready for a bridge. For the tiny bit of squeeze out, we'll just use a Q-tip and some soapy water and get it before it cures. Next day, take off the clamps. One of the clamps was stuck. A little epoxy squeezed in there. I loosened it with acetone. Now I'm trying to clean it off with acetone. Once it cures, you can't clean it off with solvents. You've got to mechanically take it off. I used that little palette knife that was sharpened. Clean the rest with naphtha. I was happy to see that the screws weren't glued in place. That wax worked great. If the bridge ever needs to come off, those screws will come out. I'll install the abalone dots later. Here's the fun part. My shipment from the Dusty Guitar came in. This is the first time I'm looking at these. Perfect fit. The holes on the back line up perfectly. There's something holding them back. Each tuner has 3 spikes that dig into the wood. So I gotta come up with a way to seat these tuners. I'll use this little glue jar. Put it over the post, and I'll put the bar clamp over the entire deal. Clamping is a success. Very nice. Very nice indeed. think a little liquid hide glue will do for the abalone dots. Abalone shell, that is. Command. Command. Why is he saying command? Command is the man behind the Ovations. What do we have for action? We've got 2.25 millimeters for the bass strings and 1.75 millimeters on the treble strings. 12th fret.